I'm your host, Z Wrongs, Senior Project Manager. Today we have our Square One Senior Director of Operation, Trisha Aure. She comes to us with 10 years of experience serving the medical device industry, OC Honorary 40 Under 40 by the Greater Irvine Chambers of Commerce, and a mentor for an organization, MedTech Woman. Most importantly, she's a fur mom to two babies, Bailey and Roxy, as you guys can see on the screen.
Thank you, Z. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm super excited to be here today talking about networking. I looked over at the RSVP list and we have a great variety of folks coming to us today. So we have some that are starting their networking journey. We have other people that have been doing this for years. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion today and where this is going to lead everybody. All right. Now, type the first word that comes to mind when you're thinking about networking. Be vulnerable. Don't overthink this. What's the first thing that popped to mind? Leveraging contacts. Oh, discovery. Interesting, Hank. Talking, of course.
Opportunities.
Love it. Oh, relationships. Someone might have seen my deck already, huh? All right, I love this. These are already spurring up some great things, and you guys have access to these chat ones too. So I love these real conversations, contacts. These are great, guys. So as someone has looked at my deck, let's jump in. So networking, it's about building relationships, right? Relationships will not last if there's not consistent and intentional interactions. Now, think about any healthy relationship in your life. None of those have happened overnight. It takes time to nurture and foster a relationship. The hardest part of any networking journey is just to start. You need to find your why. What is important to you? What are you trying to accomplish in your career? Now, there are multiple reasons people start networking, and sometimes it's not necessarily for the right reason. I need a job, or I have to because my company said so. Now, even if this is the reason you start networking, in order to ensure this becomes a benefit to you and your career, you have to align what is important to you and the association or event that you're going to attend. For instance, is it mentorship, growth in leadership, medical device, women in STEM, education, philanthropic, right? Could be a lot of different things. Now, you may not be able to find everything in one association and probably won't be able to find it, but prioritize that list and then start narrowing down the associations that match your priorities. As you start narrowing down this list, I always suggest go to a couple events before signing up for membership just to see what it's all about, who attends, what's going on there. So a few years back, I was actually looking for a new association to get involved in. The things that were important to me at that time were medical device, technical women in leadership, and mentorship. So I first went to good old Google, see what would pop up. I also went to my network community to talk to them about what they were involved in or associated with as well. I then created a list of associations and compared what their mission was to what my goals were. I even reached out to a couple of said organization leaders to get their take and just have some one-on-one time and ask questions to see about the alignment there. MedTech Women stood out as they marked many of my wants off my list. And at that time, they're actually starting their mentorship program. So I will say that program alone is worth $150 membership. So like I mentioned before, I did attend a couple events before I signed up though. The topic, the people, and the conversations aligned where I wanted to be. This started my second leg of my networking journey. So over the years, I've had people ask me about networking, how I've gotten involved in different organizations. And early in my career, I didn't network. I'm sure a lot of you are in the same position I was. I didn't really know what it was about, nor did I care to find out about what it was. A little over a decade ago, networking was talked about more and encouraged, but still wasn't mandatory. I was then voluntold, which I think some of us is why we start, that I needed to attend different conferences and events. The only reason I went was because I had to, and it was on my performance review. So you know what that did? I did not show up to these events intentionally. I showed up because I had to. Now, in 2018, my thoughts of networking changed. I joined Device Alliance and quickly was tapped on the shoulder to join the leadership team, and I became a membership chair. This quick trajectory change was such a great experience as it made me speak to every single person that joined our events or even was inquiring at events. So it got me out of my comfort zone. So this actually turned into me moderating events. And I told many people I would never do that. And it was literally just because I was scared or nervous, not because I didn't think I could, but I ended up moderating a couple different events. I was on the leadership team there for 5 years and have stayed an active member for a little over 8. I started going to other events and mixers to find my networking identity outside of Device Alliance, which brought me to my MedTech women story I just shared here. What MedTech women provided me was having my first woman mentor. I've had multiple mentors in my career, never a woman mentor. I then became a mentor to multiple young women in medical device engineering. MedTech Women also has a huge educational webinar presence that covers various topics every year. The one thing this association was missing, though, was more face-to-face events. I thrive with in-person interactions. They did have a small networking happy hour with about 10 people that I attended, and I realized that networking doesn't need to be 50 people or more. So I said out loud, mind you, I can host one of these types of events. The reason I said it out loud is I knew people would hold me accountable to do so. So on the side note, make sure your circle has some accountability buddies in there. They're the ones who help keep me on my train. But this is not as hard as it sounds, right? I took the pressure off my shoulders by having a partner to help with ensuring it wasn't just going to be me that showed up to these events. I started small, 10 max. After a couple of these small group meetings I hosted, I started having larger mixers, brought in 35. I think I had one that was around 50 people. It's that whole quote from a movie. I know it's going to date me, but build it and it will come. Now, I'm not saying you need to host your own networking events, but if you're really passionate about pursuing something and you can't find it anywhere else, take a minute and think about how you can do this outside of the norm. This is the time that would be good to lean on your community that you have built over the years to talk about your challenge or next step in your journey.
And then there's a question for you is what mistakes do you see early career professional make when they're trying to build connections?
I think the biggest mistake people make is why they're going. So I mentioned earlier the whole job thing or being forced to do so. Uh, Now, even if that's, hey, at the end of the day, this is what I'm looking for as a job. It's about building those connections, though. And I have a slide a little bit early to talk about the goals that you should be setting before each event. But I think the mistakes are going in, hey, I'm going to go to this event and let's just see, right? No homework, not knowing who's your audience, not knowing what you're trying to get out of it. Even if you want to meet one person, that's still a goal, right? So the second part, which I'm going to get into as well, is what do you do after that event? That's really important too. I'm not going to give you those secrets yet. We have a couple of slides to get through first, but so it's about prepping before and the after the events or conferences to keep building on.
Thanks for sharing.
Of course. So there are a lot of different areas to find associations. The list you see here, it's only a small snapshot of associations, but ones that are constantly putting on events. Now, how do you find associations? So, like I said, good old Google, right? I start there. I also follow a ton of different groups and people on LinkedIn so that I can stay up to date what's going on, where they're going to, webinars, whatever's going on, either with the association or where people with my same similarities are doing outside of work, talking to people about what they're doing. I know you guys have heard of these before, but meetup.com and Eventbrite are places that you can go look at and find local events, maybe even webinars. You can even narrow them down based off of certain things like medical device or engineering or marketing, whatever you're looking for out of an association. So I've actually found a few that I haven't found on LinkedIn, but I found via a Meetup or Eventbrite. You'll also see associations partner with other associations on having events, which are always a lot of fun, and it makes it easier to hit a bigger audience in one setting. So conferences. So conferences, these are the events. There's typically one a month, maybe one a quarter. Conferences, you're typically going to see conferences once a year, and they're yearly. Some of them going to have a few. Like MD&M has 3 a year. These ones are going to have a bigger scale of audience. So a mixer, or just your typical monthly event, you 50, maybe 200 people. When you're talking about these conferences, you're talking thousands of people. One day, some go 3 days. You're going to have educational, either panels, webinars, breakouts, and the opportunity to meet various types of people, like I said, over 1 to 3 days. MedTech Color, AvaMed, MedTech Women, these are big conferences in the fall every year. Octane has a big neuro event in March. JP Morgan, that was in January up in the Bay. LSI is coming up as well in March in Data Point. MD&M, like I mentioned, we had one, I think that was last week here in Anaheim. There's another one coming up in Minneapolis, and then the one in the South later on in the year. I want to say that's in Florida. So the thing to take into consideration in regards to conferences is there's a price tag that's associated, and it's in a pretty hefty price tag for the most part. But you got to look at what your goals and the ROI out of it. It could be worth you spending that type of money to go to some of these, right? Maybe not all of them, because that's a lot of money if you want to go to 10 a year on these, right? The other thing to look at too is, dependent on what the conference is and what you do in your company might be able to sponsor you. I have some of these events, I know they have sponsorships, meaning the company that's sponsoring the event might have so many tickets to go to as well. So that might be a way to help kind of cut the cost for you a little bit in attending these. But I look into these. My team was up in MD&M last week and had a great experience. We're talking about Octane next month. So there's going to be a lot of ones that I really think you guys should look into here. Now, we're talking about goals and picking associations. So we got to start out with, what are your goals and what are you trying to achieve? For me, I like to break down personal and professional goals. I then break that out to within a year, in 1 to 4 years, and 5+ years. Now, how can networking help with these goals? Now, networking is not going to help with all of them, but I guarantee you networking is going to help with some of these. Now, what association can help out with those goals? So it's just keep paring down, right? An easy place to start when finding events is, where are your coworkers or people with your same interests going? Now, if you attend events with someone, especially if they're your safety crutch, make sure you're branching out from that person. I see many times, and believe me, I've been there, I've done that. Sometimes I'll do that every once in a while, but is it you go there and then, okay, I'm here, I feel secure, my friend is right next to me, and now you just check the boxes, I have networked. But have you? Or are you just hanging out with your friend? Once you have found an event or an association that you want to attend, in order to get the most out of the experience is to set goals. And the key here is having relevant and attainable goals. And then you build from there. I've worked with some folks about networking, and prior to an event, I always ask, what are you looking to achieve from this event or this conference you're going to? I've had some say, I want to meet 10 people that are in this industry, this title. And this is where you can easily hurt your networking journey, because that's a pretty aggressive goal. How about 2 people? And maybe the next one, 3 or 4. And maybe it's connecting folks within each other, volunteering, maybe it's hosting. So building a trajectory of goals is easier to build on and stay focused, rather than having unrealistic and unattainable expectations. I also go to events, like I mentioned, to check them out to see if it aligns with what I'm looking for in an association. So now I know I have some networking vets out there. How do you guys go about choosing an association that fits your goals? Oh, referrals.
I believe someone said something earlier. They were saying just network before you need a job. So just making relationships, building relationships there.
Yeah, I think that, important part with the job thing, right, is, network when you don't have a job. I mean, when you have a job and continue that throughout. It shouldn't be sporadic. It's like relationships. When you don't see somebody in 6 months or a year, it's a little bit, you start losing that relationship a little bit, right?
Mhm. Um,
LinkedIn.
there's some really good ones coming in. It says build one says you can't find one.
Oh, I'm gonna get there. I love that.
Yep.
Oh,
And
dinner time with friends. So I like that because the one-on-one stuff I think is really important as well. And that's things that you can do after the networking. And I think that's in my next slide here, talking about how to continue to nurture and foster relationships. So I love that. And that's a little bit out of box. I don't think people always think, hey, if I go have coffee or dinner with someone, is that still networking?
uh, join organizations that align with your professional goals. Like if you're in quality, then maybe you go into a quality one or like ASQ.
Yep.
That's a good
Oh, there's
one.
ASQ again. Yep. Awesome. I love that. Okay, so something as important as starting to network is, and you guys are stealing my slides here. What do you do after you network? Don't just leave the event and say success and do nothing, right? This is the difference between showing up and being present. Now, going back to my comment about nurturing relationship, there has to be a next step. Now, don't overthink this part. For me, I always like to connect and send a quick little message on LinkedIn, or maybe it's an email, depending on the interaction, and keep it simple. Hey, nice meeting you at the networking event. I'd love to learn more about X that you and I talked about. You open for coffee or lunch? Or Gil, I think you said dinner. The one-on-one interactions help break down walls and help foster relationships without distractions. But maybe it wasn't one of those types of conversations you had. Hey, nice meeting you. Hope to see you at the next one. And then when you see them at the next one, great to see you again, right? And continue that conversation, relationships. This is now the second hardest part for people. But after you attend more events and meet more people, this will become easier and second nature to you.
So Trish, there was a question. It says, so what would your approach be in staying in touch without feeling transactional?
That's a really good question. So I think the biggest part there, and I think it's going to go back into my next slide, is being genuine and authentic. I think when conversations and relationships start getting transactional is when you're reading off a script, or, well, I got to make sure I do this, or sales folks, I want to ask for the sale, right? So, it's, hey, no, let's just break down walls. Let's just talk. Let's have, hey, what do you do? What do you like to do after work? Hey, you got two dogs. Do you like dogs? So it's just, I think it's really that the genuine part of it, that if you're genuine, transactional is typically not even in the speak anymore. So if any of you guys know me and we've talked about books, this one shouldn't be a surprise. This is such a great read with a simple story about going through life with the intention of giving, helping, and providing without expecting anything in return. Being genuine with this mindset in many facets of your life, but specifically to networking, because let's be real, this is why we're all here today, right? Is crucial. This pairs so well with networking because it talks about building genuine relationships and how it comes full circle. You show up for people, these people will typically show up for you. If you guys haven't read this before, read it. I've actually read it a couple times. It's just a really good reminder of going out without expecting things in return, right? All right. So now here's my ask. As we wind down today's discussion, it's important to think about goals, which we've talked kind of throughout the webinar. I highly encourage everyone on reflecting where you are today with networking. If you're a beginner or been doing this for years, what are you trying to achieve in the next 6 months or in the next year? Once you establish that, what needs to happen over the next 30 days to start initiating how to achieve those end results? Don't overthink this. If you guys are like me, I like to overthink things. It could be a lot of different things. It could be attend a medical device event, set a coffee with an existing networking partner, create a 6 month or 1 year networking plan. I can help create realistic steps and a trajectory plan. Maybe it's a connection introduction I can help out with. So, one of my goals has always been how to service and nurture our industry. Early on in my Square One career, I started a small group called Consulting and Coffee. Any of you guys heard of that? It was about bringing people together that had similar interests in different stages of their consulting career and making connections and provide insights on how to grow their business. It only lasted for a little over a year or so, but it was something I was passionate about and in a position to be able to give back. Things don't need to be perfect, nor do things last forever. It is not a failure that it didn't last. It would have been a failure if I never tried. It's about adapting and adjusting as you grow in your profession, your personal lives.
What were some mistakes that you made when you were hosting a networking event?
I think part of it is that realistic side of it, So doing my first one, actually, consulting and coffee was my first one, but to think that I'm going to bring in 50 to 100 people the first time I'm going to throw an event and not be able to prove value yet, I think is unrealistic, right? So I think the biggest thing to think about is, hey, what can I realistically expect from this group? So my first one was, hey, I can get 10 people to join. I can do that. And I also had a partner. Hey, can you get this out? The marketing thing, right? The word of mouth to be able to push out for that is going to be very helpful in making sure that it's growing and nurturing and not slide back. I think the other thing is an agenda. That's where that quality aspect comes into. What value are you going to be bringing, and having a certain topic or a focus within those discussions, I think, are really important.
And also, what is the worst thing someone does when they show up to a networking event for the first time?
Have a resume in hand and say, "I'm looking for a job." That I know that that's a stigma, and I think it's probably people are giggling right now. It's true though. I've been even brought to, like, I had someone have like 20 resumes in their hand at a networking event, and they were just handing them out. I was like, I'm not sure where you're going to get from that, but I think that outside of the job thing, I think the worst thing you can do is not have a goal or a plan on what you're trying to achieve at that. Because at the end of the day, even if it's a networking event and not like a conference or something, that's still 2 hours. You're going to do 2 hours and not be prepared.
How would you go about introducing yourself virtually to someone who you never met on LinkedIn if you wanted to start a networking relationship?
So in order to reach out to someone that you don't really know, but then you want to establish some type of relationship with, you have to have some type of um, connection's not the right word, but a reason why I'm reaching out to you, right? Maybe you've seen them attend certain events that you want to learn more about. Maybe they're doing something philanthropic that you're interested in, or hey, maybe they have certain connections or they're interacting with your stuff. So I'm giving these examples because I utilize those examples, right? Hey, I saw that you were at this event last night. I've never heard about that. Can we talk about that? I'd love to take you out for coffee, and just discuss your journey there. Um, that's the part that's a little bit harder though, especially if it's LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is made for like a sales platform, right? And a lot of times people are sending messages that you don't know. And if you don't have something that's genuine, it's going to automatically be declined and think that it's a sales email, right? So I always started out with something that we've connected on. Maybe if it's even our background. Hey, we both went to Chapman. I'd love to learn about what you were able to do after school. I'm just graduating, or whatever that is. So try to create something that you guys already have in common that you can see off of LinkedIn.
And then how do you find your voice to actually do your first networking and speaking out?
So, for me, if anybody knows me, I'm a planner, I'm a preparer. I've gotten better with speaking. As you've heard through my career and of networking, I've started out with just talking to people, moderating, and even doing webinars like this. So it gets easier over time. But even today, I still prepare. Now, I have a script. I don't stick strictly to that, but I want to make sure I know what I'm saying, or at least have a loose idea of where I'm going to go with the conversation. So I think that's the biggest part. Is for me, to make me comfortable in a speaking situation, I need to prepare. And maybe that's even talking out loud to somebody else. That's what makes me comfortable. I think people need to figure out what makes them comfortable. Some of it, maybe you do need note cards. Maybe you do need a script when you're in these situations. I just caution you, though, make sure that it's not robotic. Everyone, if you're robotic, you can tell when you're reading off something. And I'm sure you guys saw my eyes down a little bit because I was reading off stuff too, but I was trying to keep it conversational. I think that's more of the key, is to create whatever you're doing or speaking in front of people that it's conversational.
What makes a networking message stand out to you?
A networking message. Okay. Okay. So I think when I'm assuming this is after you network and it's one of those connection ones, uh, remembering something that I said or that you and I talked about, that's already going to capture me because you took that interaction, even if it was a 1 minute, 5 minute interaction, you took that to heart, you remembered it, and then followed up with it. So follow ups in general for me, if like I said, especially if there's something that resonated from our first interaction, those are what stick out. And now if I got a message from somebody that I met, and I meet a lot of people. Maybe I didn't remember the interaction. I just got, hey, you want coffee? I'm not sure who you are. Now I feel bad because I need to go remember who that was. But hey, went to Device Alliance last night, and this is what we did. I'd love to take you out for coffee.